Welcome back to Literacy Listens, the podcast where we explore listening comprehension and its powerful role in literacy development. I'm Amber, joined by Brian, our listening comprehension expert.
Hey Amber, great to be back.
Before we dive in, a quick reminder, the voices you're hearing are AI generated and the script was created with support from AI tools. The ideas come from research carefully curated by Read Charlotte, a nonprofit dedicated to improving literacy outcomes for students in Charlotte, North Carolina.
So today we're unpacking an important research finding. Listening comprehension isn't a single skill, and because of that, it can't be taught through one strategy or routine. It needs what researchers call a multi-component approach, teaching the different skills of listening comprehension in an integrated, coordinated way because these skills are dynamic and heavily interrelated.
Right. Okay, so Brian, why don't we ground this idea in a short story that Dr. Young-Suk Grace Kim has used to illustrate how listening comprehension actually works?
In a 2016 ED Talk at a knowledge forum hosted by the American Educational Research Association, which we'll link in the show notes, Dr. Young-Suk Grace Kim tells a story about a man who saved all his money and asked his wife to put it in his casket so he could take it with him after he died. After the funeral, the wife places a shoebox in the casket, and when her friend asks, "You didn't really put all the money in there, did you?" the wife says, "Of course I did. I deposited the money in the bank and wrote him a check." Most listeners laugh immediately, which tells us something important. You understood the story even though the text never explicitly says what happened.
That understanding didn't come from one skill alone.
Right. You had to understand the language, hold ideas in mind, connect information across the story, and use what you already know about how the world works. Meaning emerges when many skills work together, which is why researchers argue that listening comprehension benefits from multi-component instruction.
This story shows us what comprehension looks like in real life. Understanding isn't built skill by skill in isolation, it's built through coordination.
And that's exactly what multi-component instruction is designed to support.
And this brings us to today's big idea. Because listening comprehension relies on multiple interacting skills, instruction needs to account for those multiple components. That means intentionally weaving skills together inside meaningful listening comprehension tasks, while still being aware of the individual component skills students need help strengthening across the week.
And we see this consistently in the research. Skills like vocabulary, grammar, syntax, inference, perspective taking, comprehension monitoring, and text structure don't operate independently. Their impact is often interconnected, with skills reinforcing one another. For example, strengthening vocabulary doesn't only help students recognize word meanings directly, it also supports inference making, helps students follow complex sentences, and monitor their understanding. That's why students need regular opportunities to work with both lower-level and higher-level language skills across the week, even if not all in a single lesson.
And while background knowledge isn't a discrete skill, it plays a critical role in supporting comprehension and helping students make sense of new ideas. If this feels new or you want to dig deeper, we've dedicated full episodes to DEAR, to component skills, and to knowledge, so you can revisit those ideas.
And this is clearly reflected in the DEAR model, right? Dr. Young-Suk Grace Kim's direct and indirect effects model of reading, which we discussed earlier in the series, shows that comprehension develops through hierarchical, interactive, and dynamic relations among many skills. In other words, vocabulary, grammar and syntax, reasoning, inference, perspective taking, comprehension monitoring, and text structure awareness don't operate separately. They bootstrap each other. And when we say bootstrap, we simply mean that strengthening one skill helps other skills function more effectively because they work together rather than in isolation.
That's right. And Kim emphasizes that because these component skills are interconnected, instruction should address the multiple skills in a concerted manner, not in isolation. Even when we target a single skill, like inference, students benefit more when it's paired with the language structures, vocabulary, and knowledge that support it.
Another key insight from DEAR is that foundational skills for word reading and comprehension should be taught concurrently, not sequentially. Listening comprehension is the oral language equivalent of reading comprehension, and it draws on a broad set of skills that must be strengthened early and often. This is why multi-component instruction matters. No single strand carries comprehension on its own.
Earlier in the series, we talked about listening comprehension like an orchestra. Vocabulary is the strings, the melodic foundation. Grammar and syntax keep time and structure like the rhythm section. The woodwinds and brass are those higher-order skills, like inference, reasoning, perspective-taking, and monitoring meaning, adding color, nuance, and emotion. And text structure awareness is the sheet music, guiding how ideas unfold. In today's episode, we're really continuing that metaphor. Multi-component instruction is like thoughtful conducting. It doesn't ask one section to carry the whole performance. Instead, it helps each part develop, coordinate, and come in at the right moment so students can experience the full richness of meaning.
So, if we pull all of this together, the message is clear. Listening comprehension grows best through both explicit skill instruction and contextualized connected practice. Vocabulary without grammar and syntax only gets you so far. Inference without knowledge isn't enough. Comprehension monitoring only matters if students can use it while listening to real text.
So, what does a multi-component approach look like in the classroom?
Well, it starts with naming the skills. Today, we're going to learn a new Tier 2 vocabulary word, something like expand. We'll also pay attention to how the author structures information, and we'll pause when something doesn't make sense to practice comprehension monitoring. Intervention research shows that explicit teaching of component skills can strengthen students' ability to use those skills during real listening tasks. Naming, modeling, and practicing a skill up front makes it more accessible when students encounter complex ideas.
Then you give students a meaningful listening experience, maybe a read aloud, an informational clip, or a short podcast segment. As students listen, you intentionally weave in those skills. You model vocabulary and context, draw attention to how sentences are structured, help students track ideas like problem and solution, and pause to notice when meaning breaks down. And as students discuss what they heard, they're rehearsing those skills again, connecting ideas, checking meaning, using new language, and grappling with the content.
Exactly. The beauty of a multi-component approach is that it doesn't require brand new routines or extra time. It's about being intentional. What skill am I lifting up before the read aloud? What am I modeling during it? What am I reinforcing in the discussion after?
And because listening comprehension is the foundation for later reading comprehension, those repeated, purposeful layers matter. Each skill supports the others.
And we see the benefits across elementary school. Children can comprehend more complex and sophisticated oral texts than they can read independently, which means listening comprehension tasks are the perfect place to teach these interconnected skills early and often.
So here's a reflection question for your next lesson. Instead of choosing just one skill, think about your next meaningful listening comprehension task. Which listening comprehension skills can you pair together, and how can you model and reinforce them before, during, and after students engage with the text? Before we sign off, just a quick note. Literacy Listens was always intended as a limited series, and this episode marks the end of our planned run. We don't have future episodes in the works right now, but you can continue exploring everything we've talked about at listeningcomprehension.org, where you'll find research, tools, and resources to dig deeper. Thanks for being a part of this journey. As always, thanks for joining us for Literacy Listens. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube, and check the show notes for resources connected to today's episode.